What happens when one of Hollywood's most fearless spirits, a man who embodies raw energy, pride, and truth, gets pushed just a little too far on live television? It happened on The View. The cameras were rolling, the audience was buzzing, and Jason Momoa, the larger-than-life life star known for his thunderous laugh and untamed charisma, suddenly found himself in a corner he didn't expect to be backed into. Before we dive deep into this explosive moment, make sure you subscribe to Talk Narrative and don't forget to like and comment to let us know what you think of what really happened on that set. Because trust me, by the end of this story, you'll have an opinion. It began like any other episode. Bright lights, the round table glimmering beneath the studio's golden hue, and the familiar crosstalk of The View's hosts warming up to yet another high-profile guest. Jason walked in with that signature swagger, boots hitting the stage like soft thunder, hair loose and wild, leather bracelets clinking against his wrist. The crowd erupted. He smiled, waved, and gave that easy grin that made people feel like they were meeting an old friend. Sunny Host leaned forward with her practiced warmth. "Jason, it's great to have you here. You've been busy. I mean, between Aquaman 2 and your environmental work, you're everywhere right now." Jason chuckled. "Yeah, trying to do my part for the planet, you know. Gotta leave it better for my kids than how we found it." The audience applauded. His words landed with sincerity. That's the kind of thing people expected from Jason. He wasn't just a movie star. He was a presence. But under the surface, you could sense it that today something was different. The energy shifted. Sunny adjusted in her chair. "Speaking of the environment," she said carefully, "some critics have pointed out that while you advocate for sustainability, you still fly private jets to film sets and events. Isn't that a bit contradictory?" The air froze for a second. Even Whoopi's expression flickered in the background. She knew that tone, that question. Jason's smile faltered just slightly. His jaw tightened, eyes glancing between Sunny and the audience. "I mean, that's fair," he said slowly. "I'm not perfect, but I try to offset it. I invest in clean energy. It's not as black and white as Sunny cut in polite but firm. But do you think it sends the wrong message, though, to fans who see you talking about saving the ocean and then, well, see you boarding private jets?" A few members of the audience murmured. That familiar sound of tension began to hum beneath the lights. Jason leaned forward, his voice dropping lower, calmer but more intense. "Sunny, I think if you're going to talk about hypocrisy, we could look around this whole table and find it. I'm doing what I can with the platform I've got. You think I don't feel the weight of it every day?" Whoopi turned slightly, eyes darting between them, ready to interject if it went too far. But Jason wasn't done. "You see a clip or a photo and think you've got the full story," he continued, his tone sharpening. "But you don't see the work behind the scenes. The teams were funding the cleanup efforts. That's what I'm focused on, not some Instagram post about how I travel." Sunny smiled thinly, clearly unfazed. "Jason, I think people just want consistency. That's all." Jason laughed softly, but there was no humor in it now. "Consistency, huh? So I should stop making movies, too. Stop doing my job. You think that helps the planet?" The room was heavy with silence. Even the laughter from the audience sounded uncertain. He leaned back, exhaled slowly, then looked at her again. "You know, Sunny, I've done interviews all over the world. People ask tough questions. I respect that. But this," he gestured vaguely at the table, "this feels like something else." Sunny tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Jason looked down for a moment, then met her gaze again. "Feels like a gotcha moment. Like you came in wanting to make me look like a hypocrite instead of hearing me out. I didn't come here to defend my life choices. I came to talk about something that matters." The audience started clapping, unsure whether they were clapping for him or just trying to release the tension in the air. Whoopi nodded slowly, her expression softening, sensing where things were going. "Jason, I think what Sunny's saying," she started, but Jason gently cut her off. "No, Whoopi, I get it. I get that people want to hold celebrities accountable. That's fine. But maybe, just maybe, start holding the industries accountable, the corporations, the systems. Not the one guy trying to make a difference while still doing his job." The applause was louder this time. Raw, spontaneous. Even a few of the hosts seemed surprised. Sunny smiled again, the kind of smile that said, "This isn't over." "Fair enough," she said lightly. "But you have to admit, Jason, perception matters." Jason gave her a look that could slice through steel. "Perception isn't truth," he said firmly. And truth doesn't always fit in a headline. The audience erupted again, louder this time, mixed with a few audible gasps. That's when Jason leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on Sunny. His voice dropped low, almost a whisper. You want consistency? Start with fairness. The tension was thick now, almost cinematic in its intensity. You could feel the heat radiating off that table. The kind of energy that only comes when two people stop performing and start saying what they really mean. Whoopi finally stepped in, voice calm but commanding. All right, let's take a breather, people. We're live, remember? Jason sat back, still glaring slightly, but the corner of his mouth twitched, a half smile, half warning. Sunny adjusted her notes, forcing a polite laugh. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or brace for what came next, and what came next would push Jason further than anyone expected. When the show cut to commercial, the tension didn't fade, it deepened. The bright studio lights dimmed just slightly, and the sound of the audience chattering filled the air like static. Jason sat back in his chair, tapping his thumb against his knee, his jaw tight. Sunny shuffled her cue cards, pretending to read, but her eyes kept flicking toward him. A stagehand whispered something to Whoopi. She nodded but didn't move. She could feel it too, the unspoken friction pulsing through the air. Jason exhaled slowly, trying to let it go. He'd been in tough interviews before, but something about Sunny's tone, that almost smug undercurrent, it stuck under his skin. Maybe it was the implication that his integrity was just for show. Or maybe it was the fact that millions of people were watching, waiting to see if Aquaman would drown under the weight of a pointed question. A producer signaled 30 seconds till they were live again. Jason glanced toward the audience. They were murmuring, leaning in, sensing the tension that hadn't cooled down during the break. Whoopi leaned toward him quietly, her tone low and steady. You good, brother? Jason nodded once, forcing a small smile. Yeah, just didn't expect that one. Sunny looked up from her notes. It was a fair question, Jason. He turned to her, calm but cutting. Fair's a matter of perspective. The stage manager counted down. 5 for 3. And the red light blinked back on. Whoopi's voice carried the show back in with ease. Welcome back to The View. We're here with Jason Momoa, actor, activist, and environmental advocate. We were just talking about his upcoming projects, and Sunny jumped in and about the balance between fame and responsibility. Jason, I think a lot of people wonder how public figures handle that, especially when their platform carries weight. Jason smiled tightly. You mean how they handle being judged? The audience chuckled nervously. The co-hosts exchanged glances. He continued, voice steady but sharp. You know, I spend half my year traveling to remote communities that are cleaning up ocean waste. I meet kids who want to make a difference, but don't have the money, the tools, or the voice. And instead of talking about that, we're talking about a private jet photo from Instagram. Sunny raised an eyebrow. I think people care about both, Jason, do they? He asked, his tone rising just enough to catch the attention of every camera in the room. Or do they just care about the clickbait headline that makes them feel morally superior for 5 seconds? A ripple of reactions swept through the crowd. Some clapped, others gasped. Alyssa Farah Griffin leaned forward, trying to diffuse the moment. I think what Sunny means is your heart's in the right place. People just like to understand. Jason turned slightly toward her. I get it, I do, but I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to make change. There's a difference. Then he turned back to Sunny, eyes narrowing just slightly. You know what's funny? Every time I do one of these shows, I get told we're going to celebrate the work. But somewhere along the way, it turns into an interrogation. Sunny kept her composure, but her lips pressed together tight. No one's interrogating you, Jason. It's a conversation. Jason leaned forward, his voice softer now, but heavy with restrained emotion. Then maybe start having conversations that build instead of tear down. The room went silent again. Even the laughter that usually bubbled between tense moments couldn't rise this time. Whoopi tried to redirect. Let's talk about your foundation. But Jason wasn't done. He looked straight into the camera, his voice steady and full of fire. Everyone wants to talk about what celebrities are doing wrong. But if you care about this planet, really care, then stop watching people fail and start joining them in doing something right. The audience erupted in applause, loud, passionate, spontaneous. Sunny glanced at Whoopi, her expression unreadable. Jason, no one's questioning your passion, but we have to ask hard questions. That's our job. Jason smiled, but it wasn't warm. And it's mine to answer honestly, even when it's not comfortable. Fair enough, Sunny replied. The producer waved from behind the cameras. Another commercial break approaching. Whoopi jumped in quickly, laughing lightly. All right, we're going to take another quick break. Jason Momoa, everybody. The audience clapped again, but this time the energy felt uneven. Half admiration, half unease. The camera panned across Jason's face one last time before the screen faded to black. When the lights dimmed for the second break, Jason didn't move right away. He stared at the table, then slowly turned towards Sunny. You know, you could have led with the foundation, with the kids, with the work. Sunny didn't look up. We could have, she said quietly, but that wouldn't get people talking. Jason froze, studying her. The honesty of her words hit like a punch to the chest. He nodded slowly, eyes darkening. So that's what it is, huh? Entertainment over integrity. Welcome to daytime TV, she said softly, not meeting his eyes. Jason pushed back from the table, his chair scraping faintly against the floor. The sound was swallowed by the hum of the crew moving around them. Whoopi caught the look in his eyes. She'd seen that fire before, and countless guests who came in expecting a conversation and left feeling bruised by the game. But Jason wasn't like most guests. When they came back from break, he wasn't going to hold back anymore. The applause returned as the cameras rolled again. But this time, it felt uneasy, like everyone in the studio knew they were about to witness something raw, something unpredictable. The smiles on the hosts' faces looked a little tighter now, the laughter a little forced. And Jason Momoa, he wasn't smiling at all. He sat forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on Sunny Hostin. The air between them pulsed with unspoken tension. You could almost hear hearts beating through the silence. Whoopi Goldberg tried to smooth the moment, her tone light. All right, we're back with Jason Momoa, movie star, activist, and all-around good guy trying to save the oceans. Jason, before the break, we were talking about your foundation and the impact it's having around the world. Jason nodded slowly, eyes still steady. Yeah, we were. His voice was calm, but it carried an edge that made every word land like a stone. You know? That's why I came here to talk about the work, not the noise. He turned toward the audience. There's a lot of noise out there. Everyone's talking, judging, assuming. But the real work, the real people, they don't get talked about enough. The audience clapped, sensing his sincerity. But just as the applause faded, Sunny leaned in. Jason, no one's denying what you do. But when you're a global figure, people notice everything. The message and the actions. That's not noise. That's accountability. Jason gave a small, dry laugh. Accountability? He turned back to her. You mean selective outrage? Sunny blinked. Excuse me. He leaned forward. Let's be real. This isn't about accountability. It's about optics. People love to tear down someone trying to do good because it makes them feel comfortable doing nothing, the audience murmured. The tension had returned thick and electric. Sunny's tone sharpened slightly, though she kept her composure. Jason, you can't dismiss legitimate criticism as hate. If you're going to be a leader in environmental causes, people will. Jason cut her off. Hold me to a higher standard. I know, but where's that standard for the politicians dumping waste into the oceans? The corporations poisoning rivers. Nobody calls them out on daytime TV. The audience burst into applause, loud, sustained, defiant. Sunny kept her expression neutral, but her jaw clenched slightly. We talk about those issues here too. Jason gave a slow nod. Maybe, but you don't ambush them on live television. Whoopi looked down for a moment, clearly uncomfortable now. All right, let's all take a breath here. Jason wasn't yelling, but his voice had that quiet thunder. The kind that shook more than any outburst could. I'm all for hard questions, Sunny. I am. But there's a line between honesty and trying to humiliate someone. You crossed it. The air was still. Even the sound crew stopped moving. Sunny's voice was calm, but her eyes flashed. That's not fair. You're a public figure, Jason. You know how this works. Jason's reply was instant. Yeah, I do. I know exactly how this works. You poke, you prod, you twist things until someone reacts, and then that becomes the story. The audience gasped. Whoopi sighed softly, murmuring under her breath. Oh boy, Jason continued, his voice lower now. You want to talk about hypocrisy? Let's talk about this whole setup. We preach truth, but we package it like entertainment. We call it journalism, but half the time it's theater. The audience fell silent. You could feel everyone holding their breath. Sunny's hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her notes. You think you're the only one who gets questioned here? Everyone who sits in that chair gets asked tough things. Jason leaned back, eyes never leaving hers. Maybe, but not everyone gets cornered for caring too much. The words landed heavy. The silence stretched. Then out of nowhere, applause. Hesitant at first, then louder than thunderous. Whoopi glanced at the producers, clearly unsure whether to go to commercial or let it play out. But Jason spoke again, his tone softening, emotion breaking through the steel. I'm not angry at you, Sunny, he said quietly. I'm angry at what this world's become. We've forgotten how to listen, how to talk without tearing each other down. Sunny's eyes softened slightly. Maybe we both could have done that better. Jason nodded. Yeah, maybe we could have. The audience clapped again. Not the frenzied kind from before, but the slow, meaningful kind. That fills the air with a strange mix of relief and awe. Jason looked around, then back at the camera. I just want people to know if you care about something, don't let anyone make you feel small for it. Even if you mess up, even if you're not perfect, just keep showing up. Whoopi exhaled with a smile, her voice gentle. That right there is the realest thing we've heard all day. Jason smiled faintly. Guess I'm not much for pretending. The red light on the camera blinked off, but the energy in the room didn't fade. Everyone knew what had just happened wasn't scripted. It was a moment. Raw, unfiltered truth caught live on television. And once that moment hit social media, the world would explode with opinions. Some cheering him on, others calling him out. But none could deny one thing. Jason Momoa had just changed the tone of The View forever. When the episode ended, the tension didn't just dissolve. It rippled outward far beyond the walls of the studio. Within hours, clips of the exchange between Jason Momoa and Sunny Hostin flooded every corner of the internet. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all pulsing with the same question. Did Jason Momoa just call out The View on live TV? The viral clip, the one where Jason leaned forward and said, You call it The View, but maybe it's time to ask whose view it really is. Spread like wildfire. Some called it powerful. Others called it disrespectful, but no one could look away. On talk radio, hosts debated his tone. On social media, fans rallied behind him. He spoke the truth. One comment read, Finally someone said what we've all been thinking. Others, though, weren't as forgiving. If you can't handle tough questions, one critic tweeted, don't go on a talk show. Back in Los Angeles, Jason sat in his home office surrounded by open windows, the ocean breeze rolling through. His phone buzzed nonstop. Publicists, friends, fellow actors, even environmentalists reaching out either to praise or to caution him. But Jason stayed quiet. For a man known for his roaring laughter and bold charisma, silence was his loudest move yet. Then came the media headlines. Entertainment Weekly. Jason Momoa snaps at Sunny Hostin. Heated clash on The View. People magazine. Jason Momoa gets candid and confrontational. TMZ. Jason Momoa explodes on live TV. Was Sunny Hostin out of line? The cycle fed itself, and soon every outlet was dissecting every second of that exchange. Freeze frames of his expression mid-argument became thumbnails for outrage. Clips of Sunny's calm retorts went viral too, sparking arguments about professionalism versus provocation. But behind all the noise, Jason sat alone, scrolling through the flood of reactions. His brow furrowed as he read a post that stood out among the chaos. He didn't snap. He stood up. There's a difference. He exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his shoulders. That was what he wanted people to understand. He hadn't gone on The View to fight. He'd gone there to talk about something real, and somehow it had turned into theater. That night, under the dim light of his laptop screen, Jason decided to speak. Not through a publicist, not through an interview, but directly in his own voice. He opened Instagram Live. The screen lit up, comments flooding instantly. Tens of thousands tuned in within seconds. His hair was tied back, his tone calm, steady, not defensive, not performative. I've seen the headlines, he began. I've seen the clips, the edits, the noise. I just want to set one thing straight. I'm not perfect. I never claimed to be, but I care. I care deeply. And sometimes when you care that much, it comes out raw. Maybe too raw for TV. He paused, eyes flicking down for a moment before continuing. Sunny asked tough questions, and she's got every right to. But I think somewhere along the way, we've forgotten how to talk to each other. We chase conflict instead of connection. We look for flaws instead of effort. The comments poured in. Hearts claps. People writing respect. Jason leaned closer to the camera, his voice low, almost intimate. Look, I've got no bad blood with Sunny or anyone on that panel. They're doing their jobs. But maybe next time we remember, it's not about who wins the argument. It's about who listens. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that came from exhaustion, but also peace. That's all I wanted to say. And to everyone out there, if you're out there trying, doing the work, don't let anyone make you feel small for it. Keep showing up. Keep caring. The live ended quietly. The last image of Jason leaning back, wind rustling behind him. His face softened by the glow of the screen. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Sunny Host posted a statement of her own. Jason and I had a passionate exchange. That's what conversation looks like. We need more of that, not less. It was brief, but it was enough. The tension that had dominated the internet for days started to ease. The narrative shifted from confrontation to reflection. Clips of Jason's Instagram Live began trending. Fans reposted his words, quoting them like a mantra. Don't let anyone make you feel small for caring. It became the moment everyone remembered. Not the argument, but the aftermath. By the end of the week, the producers at The View invited Jason back, not to argue, but to talk. Whether he would accept or not, no one knew. But one thing was certain. His voice had cut through the noise. And in a world obsessed with outrage, Jason Momoa reminded millions of people that truth doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be real. So now, what do you think? Was Jason right to call out the show, or did he cross the line? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want more intense, emotional Hollywood moments just like this, make sure you subscribe to Talk Narrative, where real stories hit deeper than the headlines. Because sometimes the most powerful explosions happen in silence.